Hey, it's me, MLB. Here's chapter 56 of Chance Ball, and this one is titled Feisty Yin. I had a feeling it might come to this, Tonkata sighed unhappily. You've been most valuable to the team. Is there any way that I could have you reconsider? Darby thought for a moment, but that sheer relief that he felt when he said that he was going to quit pushed him towards the exit, and he shook his head and then spoke into the phone again. No, I'm sorry. This is my resignation. Tonkata crunched his jaw together, but nodded into the phone as well, knowing it would probably be for the best for him not to have any more younger male assistants, as this hadn't been the first time that it had happened to him. I will see that the girl involved is properly reprimanded, he said. Yeah, I'd appreciate that, Darby replied. Tonkata thanked Darby for all of his help over the very short months together, and the pair said a brief goodbye to each other and then hung up. And that was it. That was the end of Darby's job. He put your phone back in his pocket and walked back into the store to return your phone and tell you about his resignation. You saw the look on his face and knew immediately that things hadn't gone well, except that you thought Tonkata had fired him. He better not have fired you, otherwise I'm going to turn up and punch him in the face, you threatened. No, I quit, Darby said. Wait, are you okay with that? You asked, pausing your refilling of plastic cups in the drink dispenser. Yeah, actually, he replied, pulling your phone out of his pocket to return it to you, before pushing his hands back in there and looking down. No, you're not. You crossed your arms. You still want to work there. Listen, he said, in a mildly annoyed tone. I did enjoy it, because I enjoy volleyball, and I know this is a prick dick thing to say, but I'm freaking good at it, and I love to tell others what to do. So yeah, I loved what I did. But when toddlers try and crack onto me, and it comes between me and my wife, girlfriend, you're my freaking wife, okay? Called you my girlfriend enough times it feels weird. You're my wife. Anyway, when it comes between us, I know it's time to reevaluate things. You smiled softly at him. He was doing his best. Well, what now then? You asked. Am I the breadwinner again? Not for long. I'll get a friggin' job somewhere. I don't know, stacking boxes, I guess. You knew he hated to say that sentence. He really wanted to do something revolving around volleyball. Go and coach a male volleyball team then, you offered. And have male fetuses latch onto me? He snorted. No thanks. I love how each time we speak about younger team players, they just get younger and younger. Sperm, Darby commented. You burst out laughing. Your laugh could always make him feel better, no matter what. Okay, let me finish up here and then we can go out and just get absolutely blotted, you said. Anything to make you smile again. Hey, also, we'll try out for this guy's team and win it. That'll be good money, I'm sure. Then we can be a little bit ahead. Yeah, he said blandly. You knew he was still a little upset over the whole job thing, but you also knew that he was relieved to be done. You were still brooding over Omoe and the 16-year-old setter, though. You hadn't quite forgiven them for their antics. After college the next day, you told Darby you needed to drop by work, but instead of going to work, you went to the hall that the girls practiced in. A quick peek in the window was enough to tell you that both Omoe and the setter were there, so you sat down outside in the cool evening air to wait for them to finish. You texted Darby a few times, claiming that you'd kept your phone on you for the shift. Meanwhile, Darby, who was sitting on the lounge at home, was starting to get restless and decided to go and harass you at work. He got there, and when he didn't see you inside, he knew exactly where you had gone, and so texted you again to see if you would reply. He figured that if you had your hands on your phone, then you weren't smashing faces in. As it turned out, he turned up at the hall shortly after the girls had started to leave, and came around the corner to find the 16-year-old setter in a headlock by you, and the other teammates looking on with confusion. Tonkata heard the scuffle outside and had also pushed past the watching girls and was making his way over to you and the setter. Tonkata, Darby called as he ran towards the brawl. Darby! Omoe called with excitement when she saw him. He didn't even look at her and dove straight into the fight, grabbing you and forcing you to look up at him. Babe, it's okay. Let her go. He tried to calmly soothe you, but you had seen red and you were out for blood. Her lips are turning blue! Someone yelled, and Darby grabbed your wrist and worked to pry your hands off her neck. Finally, he got you separated and dragged you back, while the 16-year-old collapsed dramatically onto the ground. Tonkata and the girls ran to her aid, while you screamed at Darby to let you go. Please, Omoe suddenly called, running over and dropping down in front of you on hands and knees. This is my fault. Please don't hurt her anymore. I shouldn't have done what I did. Darby's been so good to me, and there's no question about my being in love with him, but he loves you more. I don't freaking care about that, you barked. This bitch is bad news. You threw daggered glares towards the setter. No, if it hadn't been for her telling people, then things may have gotten worse. Darby would never have cheated on you, but I... She bowed and touched her head to the ground. I'm sorry, but if things continued, I may have tried to do some things. I love him. Your anger at the 16-year-old abated slightly and redirected towards Onway and her bold words. But despite wanting to strike her, you also appreciated her straightforwardness. At that point, the 16-year-old had sat up and started fake crying, to which some of the girls on the team told her to shut up. They knew what she had done, and she was just digging her own grave now. I suggest you stop now, Tonkata said harshly to her. You're already in a lot of trouble. She shut up immediately, and Tonkata turned his attention to Darby, but neither of them needed to speak, and just nodded at each other before you were being dragged away by your man. He didn't say anything as he took you back home, a death grip on your hand, like he was scared you were going to pull free and run back to continue what you had started back there. Your mind was in turmoil. Had you won? You weren't sure. Your inner hatred frothed at the mouth, baring its teeth first at Omwe and then the 16-year-old setter. Darby could feel your anger coursing through your hand and into his, and suddenly he stopped and spun around, planting his lips smack to yours. Surprised, your mind finally blanked and was drawn back to Darby as he held you in an extended kiss. Do you get it? He asked gruffly as he pulled back and turned to continue walking with your hand in his. That's all that matters, okay? Tell the voices to shut up. Slowly a smile spread over your face and you sighed as he looked down at the pavement. Yeah, I won, you thought, doing one little jogging step to catch up and walk beside him. With that now behind you, you and Darby prepared for tryouts, and before you knew it, the day had come and you waited excitedly beside him in the gym. Guys were running back and forth everywhere, practicing serving balls, receiving them, spiking them, setting them up. Suddenly you felt quite conscious of yourself and wondered if this was really a good idea, but one good jab in the ribs from Darby was all it took to snap you out of it. Come on, G, he cajoled. Let's practice. Taking your hat and outer jumper off, you followed him to the end of the court and caught the ball that he tossed to you. You hadn't played for a while, and for a second it was a little rusty getting your feet under you again, but in a matter of seconds you'd gotten your act together and you were well and truly warmed up. Okay, teams! An authoritative voice called to everyone. You, Darby, and a good number of other players walked over to where the male who was organising this thing stood. He took a few moments to introduce himself and talk about what he was looking for in the teams today. We want our opponents to tremble when they hear the name Kapuru, he said with raw pride. We will have a strong, unbeatable team. A few guys clapped and added their sounds of approval, and then you were split into pairs and were set up to verse each other to see the teams that would come out on top. We can do this, Darby butted to you with your libero skills and my everything else. We're going to nail this. You're awfully sure of yourself, aren't you? You teased him. I'm going to carry this team, he replied with a smirk. You just jump around, let me stare at your ass, and I'll win us all the points. That's pretty gay, isn't it? Since I'm a dude. You teased again. It's not gay if you keep your socks on. That only applies to the bedroom, you quipped, following him to the side of the court to line up and watch the first two teams play. The first two were pretty average, if you're being honest, and when the winning team won, you chuckled and threw Darby a glance. This is going to be simple, you thought as you stepped out onto the side of the court and bowed to the officiators and then took your place on court. Because there were a number of teams versing each other, it was best of 5, so you only needed to win 3 games out of the 5 and you'd be on to the next round. Let's have a good game, Darby called from behind you to the opposing team, and the two guys on the other side of the net grinned at him. Your man was serving, and you kept low as he jumped up and served swiftly to a hard-to-return spot on the opposite side of the court. The guy in the front jumped up to grab it, but accidentally knocked it out of bounds, giving you and Darby 1 point already for not even doing anything. Everyone reset, and Darby served again, having the ball returned by the opposing team's back player right into your hands, where you set it up neatly, and Darby smacked the ball down right in front of the second player on their side. That's 2G, Darby said with a smirk as he stretched his hand out to slap yours. In the bag, baby, you replied smartly. Darby was given the ball again and served again, another service ace. The whistle blew with your and Darby's easy win, and you grinned and stepped forwards to bow to the other team before stepping back and waiting to be paired up with the next team. There was a 10-minute break for you to go and get a drink and stretch, and then you were called onto court again. Are these guys hard? You whispered to Darby as you walked over to the court. Nah, Darby replied, just as one of them fumbled the ball. I see, you said, withholding your smirk as you lined up to bow before the commencing of the next round. This team was much the same as the last team that you had versed, and within 20 minutes you had cleared them and you were on to the next round. There was another short break, and then you lined up again. The next team was a little harder, and by the end of the match you had broken into a light sweat, but you and Darby had still won, which was what you had planned, so you were both happy with yourselves. How many more teams are there? you asked Darby as you walked off court to get another drink and stretch again. 5 more, I think. He replied, I don't know, let's just smash them all and get onto the official team. Yeah, sounds good to me, you shrugged. If the rest of the teams are like these guys, then we're sure to win. You raised your bottle of water to take a drink. Darby was about to agree with you, then he spotted someone behind you in the crowd and his face fell for a second. Who is it? You asked, at seeing the look on his face, looking back over your shoulder to see who it was. Who's there? We'll find out tomorrow. I'll see you then.